we treat all of our people with respect, and we're focused on the people. It's customer service, not just to our customers, but it's customer service to anyone we interact with. And that's our focus. Obviously, we have to paint things and we have to do it well. There's no way around that. You can only do that if you get good painters. And to get good painters, you have to be inviting, I guess. I don't know. And that all bleeds into a good product. We attracted the right people, and now the right people are doing what they do, which is a good job. And then the money comes after that as a byproduct. You can't help but make money if you do that.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Kevin Greene, partner and CEO of Procoat Painting. How you doing today, Kevin?
Good.
Well, I appreciate you spending some time with us. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and about Procoat Painting.
So I am Kevin Greene.
Nicely done.
I'm owner CEO of Procoat Painting. I've got a partner. He's kind of a silent partner though. Procoat is a painting company. We paint houses, light commercial. That's all pretty standard stuff. As far as a company goes, we try to do things a little bit differently, a little bit more creative branding and marketing wise. And that's kind of where I come in, that and systems development. Painting is notorious for being unorganized and late and not following through. And so my business partner and I saw that as an opportunity and jumped in.
Excellent. And what's your background? Tell us a little about yourself.
That's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different things. Let's see, I guess I graduated from University of Georgia with an anthropology degree in sustainable development. And so I became a bartender because that's what you do with an anthropology degree, unless you want to stay in academia. And then I ended up getting a job with a German company running a warehouse and as a purchasing coordinator. That moved me to New York when I was like 23, which is a long time ago. And in New York, I did that job for just a little while. I kind of did an office space situation. The company was kind of falling apart, and I was 23 in New York City working in what was it? I forget the name of the town, but it was not New York City. It was in Jersey. I could get my job done in about 3 hours. And so I wasn't going to sit in an office and play solitaire while New York City was right there. So I slowly faded out of that job, and they brought in a headhunter to clean that office out. And he gave me my 3 strikes and I quit. He wanted me to show up and stay late. And I told him, like, look, man, I've tried to do that. And I tried to get more responsibility, but I'm not going to do more stuff for the same amount of money. And
sure.
He understood by the end of it, but I had already started waiting tables in the city. So I waited tables in the city in Chelsea for a little while, a place called the Red Cat. I was doing both. So I would start work at 9 o'clock in the morning, sleep in my car from 2 to 4, go to work from 4:30 to 2 in the morning, and then do it over again. Like I said, I was 23. You can do that when you're 23. But yeah, so I did that. I started selling carpet with my sister in New York City, which is kind of a weird side thing. I have a good friend who's from Dalton, Georgia, and his family is a carpet family. And I sold carpet to a pest control company, and they offered me a job. So I started selling pest control in New York City, which was actually pretty awesome. That was kind of my first taste of like a really well-run corporate world, and I do not fit into a corporate world very easily. And I made that clear to the branch manager, who's still a friend and was kind of my first, I would call, mentor. And he was cool with that. And he accepted, like, look, this dude's, I'm hiring because he's interesting. And if I try to shut that down, then he's probably going to leave, because I would have. And I told him that. And so, yeah, he basically told me, like, if you hit your numbers, I don't care what you do. And I took that to heart. So I would, go down to Jersey and surf all morning if there were waves. And then I would be on my way back against traffic or after traffic had happened, and then get all my jobs done. He would call me and give me a hard time on my way back into town and ask me what I had planned for the day and what are you doing? And I would always have the right answer. And I was, became like the number 2 salesperson within 2 months. And I did that for about 2 years. And then I got an offer to be a bartender in Puerto Escondido, Mexico. And so I quit and went and did that.
A little bit of surfing there, huh?
Yeah, just a little. And my boss knew that was coming. I took him to lunch and he sat down and was like, "You're leaving, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah," because he was grooming me to be the branch manager. And, pest control was interesting. It was actually very interesting. It sounds like such a weird job, but like in New York City and Brooklyn, and, I walked through the ground zero after the situation. Like it was a really cool experience. And I learned a lot about sales and business management, and that kind of helped me, with what I'm doing now. So then I lived in Mexico for a long time. Well, not a long time, for 8 months. Came back. I was going to go back. I was actually met a guy from Alaska. I was going to go to Alaska for crab season. That kind of fell through. Wasn't looking like a good year. So I started doing hardwood floors. This is a long story, but there's a lot of different stuff. So I'm sure you'll be able to edit it. But went back to Athens, Georgia, waiting to hear from the people from Alaska on it was Dungeness crabbing. So it's not like the most dangerous catch or whatever the heck that is. It's like you sit on a boat in a beautiful harbor in the summertime in Alaska and play guitar, and then you pull in traps. Super mellow, but they can see the herds before the season starts. And I called him and he was like, "Look, man, it doesn't look like a great season, so you might make your money back on getting here, but you're probably not gonna make any cash." And I had started doing hardwood flooring. I'd never done anything woodworking wise before then, but I did that just to pass the time. And my good friend, same guy who got us involved with carpet, had a flooring company at the time, and he hired me on. And I took to that pretty quickly and met who would become my first business partner. We became like the top crew for him. And then it just kind of outgrew what he was doing. Like we just didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things. So he and I started our own business, and we moved to moved that company from Athens to Los Angeles through kind of a connection with a company named Carlisle White Plank Floors. We started working with them in Atlanta, and then they had opened an office in LA. So we tried to go out there. So I did that for 5 years out in LA, and then we shut that down, and I started working in the movie industry. And that was actually an awesome transition. I had no clue what that world was like. But I walked into set shops, and as a carpenter who knows how to do anything, you get a job right away because they're just looking for anybody. And so I got into that, and that kind of set off a lot of cool stuff. Like I got into coordinating. I still coordinate one show and a year. And then that just kind of was an awesome experience because it's so many kind of motivated, creative people all working on something that has a really big budget. Typically they whine like there's not a big budget, but there's typically a big budget compared to most art projects.
Sure.
And so that was just an awesome experience, meeting old timers who just knew there's just so many things about efficiency and about, I don't know. I learned a ton in a very short period of time, and it really kind of suited me. And so all of that took me to, my wife and I did that. She was in production as a production manager, and I was a coordinator / foreman for a couple shops and a couple jobs. And we traveled and we'd work. So we did that for about 4 years. We put our stuff in storage and we traveled for 3 months, and we'd work for 3 months. And then we got back from doing that, we finally needed a place to live, and we had decided we were ready to have a kid. And we moved out to Joshua Tree. And then after we had Dakota, we ended up deciding to move back to the East Coast. And I was kind of looking for something. I didn't really want to stay in the movie industry. So I did some random jobs through friends, framing houses again, and then I got a consultant gig. I was consulting people on setting up wood shops, making them efficient. And I started consulting a company called the Sons of Sawdust, and ended up joining their team and becoming the general manager of that company for a little while. And then they were brothers, and they kind of went their separate ways, and the company kind of changed gears and moved to Nashville. And so I went back in the movie industry in Atlanta to kind of get my foot in the door. So I had a fallback. As I talked with my business partner now, and he's a good friend, and we decided this could be a good venture. We looked at the numbers and looked at the opportunity, and it seemed like it could work, and that it was scalable. And we both kind of wanted something like that, something that we could scale, maybe open up a few different locations, and make it a cool company, something that you'd want to work for. And so I went into the movie industry again in Atlanta, did that for 6 months, set myself in a situation where I could step back in if I needed to, and then stepped out of that and started this.
You do not look old enough to have experienced all of that stuff over there. You just described a 75-year arc.
Well, I'm 46, so I mean, there's 20 years of stuff. Whatever. You just started working when I was 16. So
let's take a quick left turn. You talk about learning efficiency from prop guys. I spent a dozen years working in TV in front of the camera on the music side of things, and I have never been more impressed than seeing carpenters and prop guys work in the time constraints. You're on live TV, you got a 3-minute break, and what happens in that 3 minutes is jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
Right? So in terms of safety and efficiency and doing only what has to be done properly, I don't know people who do a better job of it than those guys. So you were definitely in the right place to get your eyes open. How long has Procoat been around? When did that happen? When did you launch?
Okay, so we started Procoat. Well, my business partner started Procoat in 2018, and that was basically an accident. It was a side project for him. He's a developer and owns properties in Athens and does kind of commercial construction jobs, and was building houses for a while. And he found a paint crew, and they were a good paint crew, and he wanted to keep them. So he kept him busy with his stuff, but then kind of ran out of work for him. So he started Procoat to kind of keep it separate. And he had the idea of just like, this could be something. And he did that for about a year, just word of mouth, and it did okay, with very little management and with, very little effort, it produced a profit. And he just didn't have the time to really put into it. And so I stepped in 2019, and we just kind of put the pedal to the floor at that point, and really kind of I started to rebrand the company and just put all my effort into it full time. And so we went from, I think 80,000 a year in 2018 to over 500,000 in 2019. Nice. In three quarters really of 2019. And then, we've kind of, then COVID hit and everything got weird for a minute. So we did about the same, we stayed at about the same revenue that second year. And then we've doubled every year since then, since 2020. So this year it gets harder to double after you've doubled a couple times. but we're at a good steady growth rate. And back to that question. We started then 2019 is when I jumped in, and
I imagine COVID was kind of a double-edged sword in your space. In one respect, a lot of people were struggling financially and had huge change. But as people end up working at home, they're more acutely aware of the things that need to be done around their house and want to live in a place, live and work because they're spending so much time at home, and a better looking, up-to-date place. So what were the COVID years like for you?
Yeah, well, it was interesting that the ironic thing about the COVID years is that the previous 6 months I had been testing door-to-door marketing, and it was extremely successful.
Wow.
And literally a month before the lockdown, I was about to hire about 20 college students and just go nuts on door-to-door. But then COVID hit, and you can't go knock on someone's door during a pandemic.
Yep.
You can't do that. So I had to completely pivot and figure out, okay, that's no longer an option. What do we do? We tried to kind of figure out how to do it, but the kids were all just like, I don't want to walk around with a mask on and be weird and 6 feet away from people. So that was kind of, it was challenging just because I had kind of put all my eggs in that basket marketing wise, because it was so good. I mean, the return was just insane. And so I had to kind of not rebrand, but I had to reorganize that entire marketing plan and really shoot it, learn Google and learn all this stuff and revamp the website and learn WordPress, which is like a different language altogether. That part was challenging. We also had at that point a pretty heavy percentage of our revenue was coming from a general contractor who handled it differently than most other general contractors, and they stopped working.
Oh,
and
okay.
So for some reason that they dropped from they dropped to 20% of what they were doing before.
Ouch.
And yeah, it was poorly managed on their side. And so we had to really get into the residential side of things. And so I ended up hiring, someone to help me do sales and production. At a time when people were kind of worried about losing people, I started hiring people. And it worked out though, because it gave me time to really focus on marketing and social media, which during that time was very good. And so, yeah, and we obviously could work because we were deemed essential, which was good, because one of the reasons we got into this business, we didn't know that it was pandemic proof, but was that painting is essentially, for the most part, recession proof. Mm-hmm. People have to get stuff painted. Yep. It just has to happen. And if they're not spending money on new properties, then they're probably going to take some money and put it into their properties they do own. And so it turned out that it is somewhat pandemic proof. And we made it through without, we actually hired 2 people during the pandemic. And we hired more crews during the pandemic. So we kind of grew through that time, which I was surprised. We didn't grow revenue wise because we lost the large portion of our new construction, but we filled that back up and we didn't go down. We stayed about level that first year. And then 2021 was kind of crazy.
Nice.
It blew up.
Nice. Now you're predominantly consumer, right? Or residential.
Yes.
And what sort of commercial work you doing?
So we've got a lot of work with the University of Georgia now. This year has been an insane portion of our revenue, which is good because since there is a recession, be kind of looming or whatever the talk is, you never know. Residential actually in the Southeast has slowed down a lot. There's a big slow on kind of a regional. I don't know if it's a nationwide situation. We didn't, but we have a relationship with Sherwin-Williams, and they're even seeing it in the residential sector. But commercial is taking off, and so we University of Georgia is probably our biggest client. We've got some other local developers who own quite a few of the, main strip malls in the area in Athens, and we've built a relationship with them over the last year and a half. And so we've got a nice steady flow of commercial now at the Athens branch. And, I think residential, once it ticks back up, which it will, people will get more comfortable. But there's a few factors that I think are affecting that. Rates are so high, everything, no one's borrowing money, and
Nobody's refining,
college
that's
town.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, aside from the fact that you guys actually show up and do your job, which puts you ahead of a huge swath of the service industry, what differentiates you from your competition?
I think, one of the biggest things that I've noticed, and it's something that's kind of slowly come to the surface. For years, especially a couple of years ago, I'm on all these forums for painting contractors, and I'm always the odd guy out because I'm not a painter. I've never been a painter. I'm a carpenter and a woodworker, and a lot of these guys are painters that become business owners and run a business. And there's a larger number of, I guess what you would call entrepreneurs getting into the industry, or people from different trades that are more business focused that are getting into the industry. But I think, there was this huge conversation about how it's impossible. No one had labor. No one could find people to work. And we had painters knocking on our door during that time. I think the difference is that we don't focus. We've never been focused on the money, and we've always been focused on the long-term goals. And our marketing is different, like our t-shirts have a goon on them. I'll show you a picture. I think I have. Yeah. Maybe it'll read. So this is one of our logos.
Okay.
And this is another logo.
All right.
And our t-shirts have those. Our crew t-shirts have those. Our crew t-shirt, we have like 5 different crew t-shirts. They're different colors. We treat all of our people with respect. And we're focused on the people. It's customer service, not just to our customers, but it's customer service to anyone we interact with. And that's our focus, our focus. Obviously, we have to paint things and we have to do it well. There's no way around that. But you can only do that if you get good painters. And to get good painters, you have to be inviting, I guess. I don't know. But our trucks are also race trucks. Like they all look like race trucks. They have racing stripes and numbers on them. And I made up all these things that say like 5-year warranty, but it's kind of a takeoff on the Goodyear tire font with the goon in the middle, and like RC racing, but it says residential commercial. Like I kind of remade it. It looks like all these like advertisement stickers all over the car, but it actually says this, what we do and things. And all the cars are a little bit different. And like at our branch here in Athens, people think we have like 10 vehicles and we only have 3, because you see them everywhere you go. Sure. Where if it's around, you notice it because you don't look at a work truck, but you look at a race car. And so I think that showing up and looking different but professional, it was inviting to the crews that we wanted to get, and we've ended up getting some of the better crews in the area, and now they work for us almost full time. And that all bleeds into a good product. We attracted the right people, and now the right people are doing what they do, which is a good job. And so and then the money comes after that as a byproduct. You can't help but make money if you do that.
I firmly believe that if you treat people and the craft with respect, that the money takes care of itself. I mean, it's a little cavalier. You still have to have process and oversight and all that kind of stuff, but your priorities are in order, and that's why things are fruitful for you. Nicely done.
Yeah.
What role has content played in the growth of Procoat?
For a long time, it was a big part. I think for this first, especially in the first 3 to 4 years, especially during COVID too, because there's no other way to get to people. And my wife is a content developer, so she handled our Instagram and she did an amazing job. And, I think we were probably lacking in many regards on actual getting photos. It's the hardest part is getting people to take good photos without having to spend a bunch of money on a photographer to get good photos. It's kind of hard. And my wife's actually a photographer too, but she couldn't go out and we actually couldn't afford her to go out and take photos. It's $100 an hour, it's hard to justify. But I think that telling our story on social media from the beginning, I think, especially at the time that we were doing it, really put us in front of a lot of people. I mean, I guess that's the biggest thing. Is it just I think the social media at that time, if I'm honest with you, I'm a little disenchanted with social media at this point. It's turned into such a process, videos and video. Who cares? I mean, I don't know who has time to make 2 videos a day, but unless it's like a selfie. Up until this point, it's been very helpful. And this may not be what you want your podcast, but you can edit it. I'm just being honest. But moving forward, I think there's a different focus maybe, and I think there's ways to do it in Google and ways to do it, through our website. But yeah, I think the content is going to be a little more focused on not soliciting people. That's kind of my goal now, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but to not solicit people and actually provide them something that they can take away and might make them smile.
Hey, providing value is a good thing. You may not be actively soliciting, but in effect, that's the byproduct of what you're doing. If you're engaging and educating people and providing some sort of value to them, then they appreciate you before you've obligated them to part with the almighty dollar. It's a sneaky move on that.
And I guess, and that's why, and I think we, talked about this before, but that's where I kind of got disenchanted with and I don't know, when you say content, I think of photos and I think of like Instagram, or I think of like, obviously you have to have well-written content on your website. But as far as like day-to-day solicitation of people, I got so disenchanted by it, and it just didn't make me feel inspired. And we had what I thought was a great slogan. It was customer service professionals with an expert knowledge of the painting industry. That's a pretty good tagline. But after I said it 700 times, it made me feel like, ugh. And so, as I was going to renew our membership with WUGA, which is like the public broadcasting station in Athens, I had this idea through actually Wellbone magazine. I don't know if you look at Wellbone magazine, but it's pretty awesome. I don't know if you plug them or whatever on your thing, but they're awesome. They're funny. They put out an issue called the Comedy Issue, and it had all these one-liners in it. And I'd been laughing, reading them to my kid, and like we'd all been laughing for days. And I was like, why don't we just tell jokes? And so I sent an email to the underwriter to the people and asked if we could do that. And it took them like 4 days to answer us. And so finally I called her and I said, hey, I'm just following up. I wanted to see what the deal is. And she's like, I was just writing an email trying to figure out what to say to you about that, but I don't think we can do it. And I was like, why? She was like, well, our listening base just doesn't have a sense of humor. and I started laughing. I was like, oh my God, that's so sad. She started laughing. And then she realized what she'd said, which is just ridiculous. Like, I mean, of course, everyone has a sense of humor on some level. And so I got her to entertain the idea a little further, and they pushed it up the ladder they had to go through their FCC lawyer and make sure it was doable. And they did. And now we just tell jokes. It says brought to you by Procoat Painting, and then it's a one-liner. And it's been the best marketing campaign we've ever had. We've had people come to our office just to walk in the door and say, I had to just see who worked here because your ads on NPR are awesome. And we've had people say, I sit and wait for your ads on NPR.
Well, it's interesting. You know what it says is that you're so confident in what you do as a painting company that you don't even need to talk about it. It's kind of an interesting
yeah. Yeah, and it was accidental. I mean, I'm not some marketing genius that figured out that's a byproduct of it. Yes, and maybe that's part of it, that we're confident in what we do. But the main motivation for it was that I personally am sick of being solicited.
Oh,
Every time I pick my phone up, every time I look at the computer, every time I do anything, someone's telling me how great their product is and how it's going to help change my life. And 90% of the time, I've found that that's just not true. And so I've come to, and I think there's a lot of people like this that just don't trust that form of advertisement anymore, of you telling me that you're going to do a good job. I mean, what does it matter if I get on the radio ad and say that we're Procoat and we're going to show up on time and be amazing? That's nothing. That doesn't do anything for them. They just go, oh, next, let me get back to fresh air and listen to what they were talking about. And, but now, and we get people like clients that send us their one-liners, like their favorite joke. Like
hey.
It's been this great interactive situation that's worked. And so that would be, if there's content that I could, express, has actually been fun to do, my whole crew is excited about it. The whole office laughs when I send up new jokes. And they're finding jokes. So we have a whole list in our operating system of jokes.
Hey, so you got to engage people however you can, and you have found a way. And it may not be directly related to painting, but they're coming through the door. So nicely done.
Painting's pretty boring.
Well, I mean, people sit and watch paint dry as a punchline.
Color.
Yeah.
Yeah, color theory, color's cool. There's all this stuff about colors, very interesting, and I enjoy it. But most people, when they think of painting, they're just like, I need to get my house painted.
Well, you need to get some feng shui one-liners. How's that? All right.
We'll work on that.
Yeah. Look in your crystal ball. A year from today, what would you like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
In a year from today. So I think we'd like to grow our team in the Athens branch. To be honest, maybe more of the same. Like, we just want to keep growing, keep a team that's engaged and happy to be at work, still have a great relationship with our painters and our clients, and hopefully have a lot more happy clients. But that's the most important thing to me, is just that our team is still happy to be working at Procoat.
Excellent. Please tell us what your URL is, where they can find Procoat Painting, and what social media outlets you're using these days.
Yep, we are at Procoat-Athens.com. And we're on Instagram and on Facebook. Don't think we're on anything else. I think that's all.
All right. Kevin Greene, thank you for letting me peel your onion here today on Business Ninjas. I appreciate all your stories. I wish you and Procoat Painting all the best in the future. And again, thank you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.